Morning, ladies and gentlemen, staff, council. Depending on which clock you're looking at, it's 9. I'm looking at the one in front of me here. The other ones indicate about a half a minute to 9. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, looking around the table. Have we heard anything from Councillor Davison, do you know? Okay. I anticipate then that Councillor Davison will be along, but we'll begin the meeting with roll call, please. For those new to the chamber, when we call for a vote or a roll call, it takes about 10 seconds for the results to come up on the screen. So we have 6 councillors present today. Councillor Killam, we also anticipate will be here. Councillor Hurtle and Deputy Mayor Lutz are absent and gave notice that they would be absent. One is a work-related problem. Well, they both are, and one has taken the deputy mayor out of the jurisdiction entirely. So I'm looking for a motion to excuse the attendance of councillors Hurtle and Lutz based upon their requests, and I anticipate the arrival of Councillor Killam and Councillor Davison. We'll see. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Harding, seconded by Councillor Allen. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion is unanimously passed. Thank you. Those 2 councillors are excused from attendance at this meeting. The reason we do that is that if a councillor, under the Municipal Government Act, if a councillor misses 3 consecutive meetings, then their seat is at risk. So when there's a good reason for them to be absent, we make a motion permitting that. During, as you all know, during the last while we had severe rains and flash floods that affected our community and many people in our community. Not all of the damage is yet known, but a lot of it is, specifically the death of a young man in Wolfville, Eli Young, and if with permission of council, I would like to have 1 minute of silence in recognition of those who have suffered these losses, and in particular that young gentleman. Starting now, please. Thank you. Eli was 13 years old. Item 2 on the agenda has to do with the agenda itself. You've all had an opportunity to review the agenda, unless there are errors or omissions that you wish to point out at this time. Then I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda, please. Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Granger. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. And while we're waiting for that vote, the purpose of the item 3 on the agenda, which is entitled Disclosure of Conflict of Interest Issues, has to do with once an agenda is approved, then we know for certain what is on the agenda. Nothing has been added today. Nothing has been subtracted. And in the result, councillors are aware now of the entirety of the agenda and can make a decision for themselves as to whether or not there's anything on this agenda with which they have a personal conflict. And if they did, this would be the time for them to declare that conflict. The motion has been passed. Are there any conflict of interest issues that councillors wish to declare? Seeing none, then I'll go to item 4, minutes of June the 18th, 2024. Committee of the Whole have been circulated, reviewed by staff and the Mayor, and I'm looking for a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor Watson, Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Harding. I don't know where that came from, Martha. Yeah, I'm just tell them I'm thinking about them yet. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. And referring to those same minutes, you've had an opportunity to review them yourselves. Is there any business contained within those minutes that you wish to comment on at this time? Any business arising? Seeing none, then we'll move right on to presentations. Amongst those is an acknowledgement that there are some good things that more than some good things that happen within our municipality, and we'd like to recognize those when they happen. In particular, we have a young man from Port Williams who is playing soccer at the elite level, and it was engaged in the Copa America tournament, scored a goal, without which we wouldn't have stayed, Canada wouldn't have stayed in the tournament as long as we did. And so kudos go out to Jacob Schaffelberg. We wanted to announce that publicly so that his family and his community and Jacob himself would be aware of that. And there is in the council chambers a certificate of acknowledgement of his achievements as an elite sports person. And all councillors will have signed that, and it will be sent off to his family for delivery to him. Secondly, we have with us today Ms. Emily Boucher, who is the new CEO for our REN, our Valley Regional Enterprise Network, and she is here to present to council. We look forward to hearing from the REN on a regular basis, so that being a strong partner with the REN, we know what's happening and what's about to happen. So, Ms. Boucher, you're welcome, and if you come up to this microphone, I'll turn it on for you, and if the height is difficult for you, there's a little thicker.
Oh, this is fancy technology. Can you hear me okay as is?
Perhaps you'd lift it just
lift
a
it
bit.
A little bit? I am a little short.
Well, perhaps the previous person was a little short.
How's that?
That's good, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all so much, Mayor and Council, for having me today, in particular in light of all of the events of last week. And I want to acknowledge, in particular, our first responders, our volunteer firefighters like Haley over here, and of course, our municipal officials and staff who are on the front line. So I want to extend my thanks on behalf of Valley REN, and thanks again for taking the time for me to present to you some of our updates. For those of you who were at our recent AGM in June, this will be, I've covered some of this already during the AGM, but do hope that if you have any questions at all, please let me know. I'm now officially 3 months in to the new CEO role. I've had lots of time for observation and an opportunity to meet many of you, but not all of you. So I'm looking forward to continued partnership and engagement as I continue in this role. So to get started, just gonna, oh, that works perfect. I'm not going to do too much of an overview on who we are as Valley Ren, as I know you're pretty familiar with us, but I did want to highlight our strategic priority areas over the next year and continuing on. We are in the midst of actually finalizing a new strategic plan for the next 4 years. But thus far, our priority areas are economic growth, as you know, population growth, and regional growth. When we look at economic growth in particular, that aligns with our core function, which is really providing business retention and expansion services and business navigation services to ensure that businesses across our region have the resources and access to the resources they need to grow here in the Annapolis Valley. As well, I'm going to highlight sector development updates. We have a number on the go, and this really highlights some of our multi-year, large-scale projects that take years of work, but there have been significant updates on many of these items, and I want to make sure our municipal partners are well aware of those updates. Along the lines of population growth, that aligns with our immigration and settlement navigation services. And I believe Kathleen and Jen met with you in February. There's been a lot of updates since then, so I will provide a brief overview on those. And in addition, that also aligns with our workforce development efforts, and there's significant updates on next steps as it relates to workforce development strategy. And then, of course, we have regional growth and our role in facilitating collaboration amongst our municipal partners for regional economic development initiatives. And as part of that, and I will say in the conversations I've certainly had, frequent conversations with Rob Frost and LOC members, is increased communication in the efforts that we are undertaking as the Valley Ren with our municipal partners. So under the umbrella of economic growth, some of our key updates over the past 2 months in particular. In June, we launched open office hours. And the aim of this was for our economic development officer, who leads our business navigation services, was really to increase access to those services outside of our Kentville office. So we're now holding open office hours once a month in various communities across the region. So connecting with Middleton, Kingston, Berwick, Wolfville, and Windsor, we have those open office hours. Now we're just starting up, but we are seeing increased engagement. And I would like to note that in addition to our overall Business Now services, we are seeing an increase in uptake in those services. I think we have a 15% increase from the previous year. So that's positive that we're continuing to see businesses come to us as Valley Ren for those support services. And I do encourage our municipal partners and municipal staff, anyone who's getting questions from businesses, to please send them our way, that this is what we are here to do, is to support those businesses. I'd also like to note that our staff are in preparation mode for our next business retention and expansion survey. This is an analysis of the business climate that typically takes place every 2 years. And we are working with municipal staff, in particular EDOs, to better engage our municipal partners as part of that survey, and the questions that are being asked and the data that we're taking in, and how that can best serve our municipal partners, our provincial partners, and our region. So preparation is underway for that. We'll provide an update when we have, sort of a survey template all ready to go. But that is an exciting update because it allows us to better serve businesses in our region. I'd also like to note just our Guru Site Selector tool. As you may know, that was officially launched in March and April of this past year. And that's a site selector tool for investment readiness that we're encouraging developers, business development folks to use to look for business opportunities, whether you're purchasing property, commercial property, or looking at land to be developed. So basically, we're in the process of maintaining this and continuously adding data layers to this to be more effective. The next steps of this really over the next 2 months are us focusing on incorporating this into a communications plan and how we best promote this to ensure that this tool is being used effectively, and that we're responsive to what changes may need to happen. As part of this, we're also over the summer developing an advisory committee, so we will be looking to work with our municipal partners on engagement with this going forward. And that's just a nice shot of the site selector tool. If you haven't had an opportunity to demo this, it's actually right on our website. One of the headings is Site Selector Tool, so please feel free to check it out. If you'd also like a demo, Kyle Walsh, our Economic Development Officer, is the lead on this project, and he'd be happy to provide a demo at any time. Also continuing under economic growth, and let me know how I'm doing for time. I'll try to squeeze it into 10 minutes. Tourism, you may have heard that there was a press release on this. We did receive funding from ACOA in May to move forward with the implementation of the regional tourism strategy plan. Under that plan, we are able now to hire a tourism strategy manager, so we're in the process of that hiring, and that individual will oversee the implementation of this plan for the next 2 years. And that's basically Valley Ren's exit plan as part of this project and our role in facilitating that plan and then moving it forward to another entity. So that's an important part of this process for us. I also just wanted to note that our staff participated in the Grossmorn Institute for Sustainable Tourism and the Coady Institute's Activate program. So this was a week-long tourism training program that took place in Newfoundland. I think it was over April, actually. Can you guys see that? Okay, perfect. I'm just going to go back one slide. And the purpose of this training is really to develop community asset mapping skills that will support community economic development in our region. Last week, we also hosted in our region Train the Trainer program that was in partnership with ACOA and the Nova Scotia Association of CBDCs, and that's been well received. You will receive our newsletter either later this week or early next week, which will highlight updates from that program. One of the bigger areas of focus as well for updates is ag tech. We, as of Friday, actually just received the third phase report of our ag tech initiatives, which really focuses on the development of an ag tech agriculture technology corridor for our region. There have been some shifts since this initial concept, which was primarily focused on developing an accelerator network in our region, so helping companies already established grow. Since this consultation and testing of the initial concept, we've actually moved in a direction that looks at incubation as a better option for our region, as that would help fill a gap. So with incubation, that's focused on early stage growth companies and focusing on testing concepts. So for example, working with companies who may be developing new technology of growing resilient grapevines, for example. So that's part of the work that we're doing in this area. Now, again, there's a lot of reports tied to this. So I will say in my role in this position, part of what I'm hoping to do is really take all of the data that we've had from this project. There's been 3 reports thus far, and is really developing a very, very simplified communications document that highlights the discussions that have happened thus far and next steps related to ag tech, because there's significant areas of opportunity related to this initiative in particular. We are right now looking at a fall event that will highlight the updates around this concept, and as well developing an advisory committee to continue to engage our municipal partners. So there's a lot being done in this area in particular, but we as an organization really need to simplify a lot of the very technical language that's used in that so that our region can better understand what's happening with this. And then tied to that as well, manufacturing. We continue to work in partnership with the Canadian manufacturers and exporters and are looking at a partnership tied to their Operational Excellence Institute. And that's tied into our work that we're doing in continuous improvement. So working with businesses to help them be more productive and improve internal processes. We did just finish a continuous improvement project with ACOA and are now working on another in this area that would provide more of a focus on workforce development, continuous improvement. And just a quick update, because I feel like I'm getting possibly close to my 10 minutes, is on population growth. So we are right now just finalizing the impact report on our latest regional workforce development strategy. And we're also, as we're developing our new strategic plan, focusing on what a new strategy would look like. And thus far, the conversations are focused on sector development and workforce tied to our key sectors, so agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing. A bit about our immigration and settlement navigation. I won't get into that in too much because you did have a recent presentation, but I do want to say that in the past 3 weeks, Kathleen Novelia, our immigration and settlement navigator, was able to connect more than 12 businesses with newcomer, new employees. So we are literally creating jobs with that program. And we have a lot of success stories coming out of that. So this is a project area, but I really see this as something that will absolutely continue because we're seeing significant impact in our region. And just a quick update as well, our Connector program is continuing, and that's connecting recent graduates with professionals in our community to make sure we're retaining talent. And a bit about regional growth. The focus here really is on communicating regional initiatives, and that's done in a variety of ways. We're currently doing a website audit, so updating our website to make sure it's more user-friendly. And we'll be doing that with our municipal partners as well. So you are going to, Rob, you will probably get a customer profile request from me in the next little while because we want to see how our website's currently being used and how we can improve that. And in addition to that, we are finalizing over the summer our formal communications plan to improve outreach to our municipal partners in the province and general awareness of what Valley Ren does and the work that we're doing. As part of our communication efforts, we're also trying to increase engagement with our EDOs, so our business development branch, which includes our senior economic development officer and our economic development officer, connecting with their counterparts with our municipalities. So making sure that we have increased engagement at all levels. And that includes me having more frequent meetings with Rob and other municipal contacts as well. So we want to make sure that you're very, very well informed of all of the initiatives that we're taking on and that that engagement continues to have your input in it as well. I also just wanted to briefly highlight the return on investment for Valley Ren. And if you were at our AGM, this was reviewed in detail, but basically for every dollar invested, we're increasing that by 16.14 times. So a significant increase in the amount of funds that we're leveraging through partner and project initiatives to support economic development activity in the region. And I think that I probably went over the 10 minutes, didn't I? Tried to fit it all in.
You're forgiven.
Thank you.
Ms. Spud, don't leave us. Okay. Ms. Boucher, I'm looking around the table. Are there any questions of Ms. Boucher on her presentation? I don't see any. On the tourism side, I know that there are discussions regarding replicating what's happening in other jurisdictions in the province with respect to room tax to help support the financial side. Yeah. Has there been any progress on that?
So for that component, we held an information session on May 23rd, and I will say what came from that information session, and councillors and CAOs, municipal staff were invited to participate in this. What came from that is the fact that we need a lot more information sessions to make sure individuals are comfortable with what that approach would entail, and that we have as much input as possible. Now, we certainly have support from tourism operators. We need to continue to meet with other tourism operators to make sure that there is more consensus on what the impact of a marketing levy would have on developing a regional tourism entity. So the next steps for this will be, once we have the tourism strategy manager in place, that is part of their core function, is developing information sessions around that. But we anticipate that this is going to be to take much longer, and we also acknowledge that there is obviously an election coming up in October, and that will have potentially new individuals in place. So those conversations we anticipate will last at least another year.
Okay, thank you. And just lastly, on the ag tech side, how is that progressing, and are you involving local ag business organizations in those discussions?
That's correct. So we are working with local businesses and entrepreneurs, including the likes of Matt Winchester, who's actually on July 26th. He's, I believe, it hasn't been formally announced as of yet, but I believe there is a pitch competition happening related to ag tech. So that'll sort of be a sample for us to see if we can incorporate something around that for this fall event that we're currently looking at. We're also meeting frequently with the Department of Agriculture, Invest Nova Scotia. There have been discussions on developing a regional angel capital fund from investors in the region that would focus on ag tech. I'd also like to note that as part of those conversations for shifts in what the initial concept is, we have been discussing the focus on using the term agri-food tech in particular to focus on the food and beverage sector in particular, as it's a strength certainly in this region. So those are some of the updates.
All right, thank you for your
Thanks so much. I
presentation.
really appreciate the opportunity, and at any time, please feel free to reach out. And I know I tried to squish a whole lot into 10 minutes. Those were just highlights. So this, I will say, in my first 3 months, my observation is that this team is doing a whole lot of work, and we just really have to focus on how we're communicating what's being done and engaging our municipal partners. So thank you once again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Look forward to hearing from you again. Could I have a motion to receive this presentation for information? Councillor Harding and Councillor Allen. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. It's unanimously approved. Thank you. Looking to administration, Section A, proclamation requests for August through to October of 24. And we have our equity and diversity people here to speak to us. Grayson, welcome.
Good morning, councillors and Mayor Matart. I'm here this morning to present proclamation requests for the month of August through October. The origin of these requests comes from the Strategy for Belonging and the Proclamations Policy COM-02-003. My intent this morning is to present these proclamations for adoption. Emancipation Day was first celebrated on August 1st, 1834. Celebrating the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833, and it became officially recognized across Canada in 2021. Celebrations for Emancipation Day include church services, picnics, parades, shared meals, etc., offering opportunities for social connection and to foster pride in African ancestry. This year we will be celebrating by taking a bus through Vansta's Matthew DaCosta Heritage Trail, highlighting the African Nova Scotian experience. While Canada is often thought of as a place of refuge for enslaved people, the country has its own long history of slavery. In fact, Loyalist slaveholders petitioned the Assembly to uphold their rights to own slaves upon their arrival to Nova Scotia, because at that period, throughout all His Majesty's colonies, without any exceptions, a property of Negroes was maintained and acknowledged, if not encouraged. And if slavery were to be abolished, they believed they should be given equitable compensation. Emancipation Day takes place in remembrance of ancestors who were enslaved for more than 250 years. The day highlights the perseverance of African Canadians and the fight for racial equality. Following the abolition of slavery, the unfair treatment of people of African descent continues to this day through laws and social practices. National Acadian Day has been celebrated since August 15, 1881, when the first national convention of the Acadians was held in New Brunswick. During this convention, the decision was made for National Acadian Day to be distinct from other French-Canadian celebrations. National Acadian Day festivities may include music, dancing, parades, and more. The World Acadian Congress typically takes place during the days surrounding National Acadian Day. This year, the World Canadian Congress will take place in the southwest region of Nova Scotia, bringing Acadians from across Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Louisiana, and beyond. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, sometimes referred to as Orange Shirt Day, is celebrated each year on September 30th. The day serves as an opportunity to honor the survivors of residential schools, their families, their communities, and the children that never returned home, while building public awareness. Orange Shirt Day was first celebrated in 2013, but the federal holiday for the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation was first celebrated in 2021. Using an orange shirt as a symbol was inspired from residential school survivor Phyllis Jack Webstead, whose personal clothing, including an orange shirt, was taken from her as she arrived at residential school. Treaty Day is celebrated across Nova Scotia annually on October 1st, marking the beginning of Mi'kmaq History Month. This was first proclaimed across Nova Scotia in 1986 by Grand Chief Donald Marshall Sr., and in recognition of the treaties signed between the Crown and the Mi'kmaq people between the 18th and 20th centuries. Mi'kmaq History Month was first celebrated in 1993 when it was declared by the Premier of Nova Scotia, John Savage, and Mi'kmaq Grand Chief at the time, Ben Syliboy. The purpose of Treaty Day and Mi'kmaq History Month is to promote public awareness of the Mi'kmaq culture and heritage while highlighting the historic relationship between the federal government and Indigenous peoples. Each year for Mi'kmaq History Month, a poster is created focusing on the year's theme. This year's theme is food and its significance to Mi'kmaq culture. Through the Strategy for Belonging, the municipality is committed to relationship building with community, promoting the diversity of the region, and supporting communities to tell their stories. Approval of the attached proclamations is a step toward the municipality's vision of being a community of community where all people belong. There are no financial implications for this decision. These proclamations are aligned with strong communities through the Strategy for Belonging. Committee of the Whole may choose not to adopt any or all of these proclamations. For implementation, we will publish proclamations on the municipality's website and/or social media platforms. Copies of all the proclamations are in today's agenda. And my recommendations are that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council to proclaim August 1st, 2024 as Emancipation Day across the municipality of the County of Kings. That Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council proclaim August 15th, 2024 as National Acadian Day for the across the municipality of the County of Kings. That Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council proclaim September 30th, 2024 as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. That Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council to proclaim October 1st, 2024 as Treaty Day across the municipality of the County of Kings. And that Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council to proclaim October 2024 as Mi'kmaq History Month across the municipality of the County of Kings.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Thank you for reading all that recommendation as well, so I don't have to. Are there any questions of Ms. Barker before we let her go? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. We are now faced with the recommendation that this Committee of the Whole recommend what you've seen on the screen and what has been read aloud to Municipal Council. Do I have I think I would like to take a motion with respect to all 5 of these, and then if any is to be debated, we can do so during the debate on the motion. All All right, the motion has been abbreviated. And that is that Committee of the Whole recommend to Municipal Council that it proclaim August 1st, 2024 as Emancipation Day, August 15th, 2024 as National Acadian Day, September 20th, 2024 as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, October 1st, 2024 as Treaty Day, and October 2024 as Mi'kmaq History Month in the municipality of the County of Kings. Do I have a mover of the motion? Moved by Councillor Burgess. I want to say Burgess. Yes, I will say Burgess. Seconded by Councillor Granger. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's passed unanimously, thank you. And Secretary, we've noted the presence of Councillor Killam, have we? Thank you. That brings us to 7B, Policy Admin 01023, Council Conference Attendance and Professional Development, and Ms. Ward will be presenting on that. This is Ms. Ward's first appearance before Council, so I know she's very much at ease. We welcome.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mayor and members of Council. I'm here today to introduce a new policy for your consideration, Admin 01023, Council Conference Attendance and Professional Development Policy. Currently, there is a 2014 policy statement on Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference attendance. It is understood that the FCM statement is not a formal policy, but rather formed a part of a council motion in 2014. The intent of the draft before you today is to place the benefits and requirements associated with professional development and conference attendance within a formal municipal policy. Please note that the conference expenses are governed under a separate policy, Policy FIN 05008, Business Expense. The main recommendations are that the Mayor has the opportunity to attend the annual FCM conference each year. If unable to attend, the Deputy Mayor is given the opportunity to attend in their stead. Each councillor is given the opportunity to attend an FCM conference once during a 4-year term. All members of council may attend a conference workshop of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities each year. Should a member of council wish to attend additional conferences or undertake additional professional development activities, a request is to be made to the CAO or their designate. Oh, thank you. Consideration should be given if the activity has the primary function of enhancing the council members' skills or aptitudes that directly relate to their work on council, boards and committees, and if the council travel budget allows. The recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council provide 7 days' notice per Section 48, subsection 1 of the Municipal Government Act to adopt Policy Admin 01023, Council Conference Attendance and Professional Development, as detailed in the July 16, 2024 request for decision.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Any questions regarding the presentation? All right, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for reading the recommendation. In order to get it on the table, is someone prepared to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Burgess. A seconder? Seconded by Councillor Allen. Now discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote. I'm sorry, Councillor Allen.
Motion. I think it's very...
You'll have to start again. I didn't have your light on.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be voting against this motion. I think it's very important that all councillors have an opportunity to attend all federal conferences. I think it's important that we broaden our horizon on what's going on across this country. The connections that you make when you attend these conferences by meeting other councillors across the country. And very important not to just be informed on what's going on in our region, but other regions of Canada. So For that reason, I'll be voting against it. I think it's important to attend these, to broaden our knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion's passed with 3 negative votes. Thank you. Just say in passing that when there are issues that we don't have relative unanimity on, it is good, it's helpful to hear from folks as to why they're voting the way they are in the event that they might be able to bring other councillors to their side. Moving on to item D, Policy Admin 01024, Asset Naming. Notice, our diversity specialist. Ms. Ward, you're staying with us. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I thought you were
So
getting
much
off
fun the
easy
first time.
today. All right, you're with us on Bylaw 111, Police Advisory Board.
So now I'd like to talk about bylaw number 82, the Police Services Advisory Committee. On December 1st, 1998, the Police Services Advisory Committee bylaw was enacted and last amended on January 5th, 2016. The intent is to repeal and replace bylaw 82 with a new bylaw that fully aligns with provisions of the Nova Scotia Police Act. The proposed bylaw features a name change and updates with respect to member composition, member screening process, and meeting governance. The name of the committee has been updated to the Police Advisory Board rather than the Police Services Advisory Committee. This change aligns with the Police Act. The proposed bylaw aligns Section 57(4) of the Police Act with the appointment of 7 members. Of those members, 1 is appointed by the Minister of Justice. Of the remaining appointments, in accordance with the Act, 3 must be members of Council. It is being proposed that the Council members be comprised of 2 representing the area served by the New Miners RCMP detachment and 1 representing the area served by the Kingston RCMP detachment. As for the non-council member appointments, it is being proposed that 2 also represent the area served by the New Miners RCMP detachment and 1 represents the area served by the Kingston RCMP detachment. Should Council not receive any applications for citizen members from a designated geographical area, it may appoint an applicant from another part of the municipality to represent that area. The regulations to the Act require that selection of members to the Advisory Board involve a screening process established by Council. The proposal is for the nominating committee to serve in that capacity, being resourced by a senior staff member, typically the manager of the Municipal Inspection and Enforcement Division. The proposed bylaw sets out which agenda items that are to be dealt with in private session. And with that, we have the recommendations.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. Ward on her presentation? Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. I'm on this board, so I'm just, or committee, or whatever it's going to be called. Just wondering why a name change?
It's just to keep it consistent with the terminology used in the Police Act. That's all. There's no substantive change. But
Okay, simple enough. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then the recommendation, thank you, Ms. Ward. Seeing none, then the recommendation is to this committee that it recommend to Municipal Council that it give first reading to repeal bylaw 82, the old Police Services Advisory Committee bylaw of the municipality of the County of Kings is attached to the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. And of course, this is recommendation number 1. And number 2 is that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Municipal Council give first reading to adopt bylaw 111, being the Police Advisory Board bylaw of the municipality of the County of Kings as attached to the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. Do I have a mover of the motion? It's moved by Councillor Granger, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Any discussion on the motion? Pretty straightforward. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. That now brings us to item D, which is Policy Admin 01024 Asset Naming Notice. And from our diversity specialist, Ms. Lucy O'Forty is here to present. Ms. O'Forty, when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. I hope you folks are all doing well. Today I'll be presenting the request for decision for
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you lift the table
yes.
a bit? The people at the back have difficulty hearing.
Is that better?
Much better.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, folks. So yes, today I'll be presenting the request for decision for the asset naming policy. So the origin for this is the strategy for belonging, which Council adopted on December 2021, more specifically developing a policy for how places, infrastructure, and things are named in an action item in the strategy. So the intent for this morning's presentation is for Committee of the Whole to consider recommending the adoption of the aforementioned policy to Municipal Council for adoption in accordance with the municipality strategy for belonging. The municipality of the County of Kings is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and current territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. Within municipal boundaries are the communities of Glooscap First Nations and Annapolis First Nation, as well as a diverse urban and rural Indigenous population. The municipality is also home to 3 historical Black communities: Cambridge, Gibson Woods, and Pine Woods, currently known as Aldershot, located west of Canning and north of Kentville. The asset naming policy aims to establish a process for naming and or renaming municipally owned assets that honor a history of colonial and or oppressive figures or actions against historically excluded communities, particularly Indigenous and African Nova Scotian communities. The history of the municipality, much like Nova Scotia, includes periods of significant injustice and marginalization, particularly against Mi'kmaq and African Nova Scotian communities. The forced removal of Acadians, the arrival and settlement challenges faced by the New England planters, and the continued marginalization of the Mi'kmaq and African Nova Scotians highlight a complex and painful history, the impact of which continues to be felt today. Naming and renaming assets serves as a powerful acknowledgement of these injustices. Further, the removal of oppressive and harmful names shows the municipality's commitment to addressing and impacts of these actions. In the context of the policy, municipal assets includes buildings, rooms within those buildings, trails, parks and park features, bridges, roads, landscape features, and other assets owned or managed by the municipality. For greater certainty, a municipal asset in the context of the policy may or may not align with the definition of tangible capital asset as set out by the Public Sector Accounting Board of Canada. Implementation of the asset naming policy would be a significant step towards cultural recognition, affirming the municipality's commitment to reconciliation and decolonization. The Mi'kmaq Nation has a rich history and deep connection to the land in the County of Kings, while African Nova Scotians built a foundational structure of many of the communities we live in today while enslaved by white settlers. It is imperative that residents and visitors learn about the diverse histories of these historically marginalized communities to develop an understanding and appreciation for their contributions and critical need for reparations in the County of Kings region and across Nova Scotia. Having a united and informed community that values diversity, inclusion, and justice demonstrates the municipality of the County of Kings and its commitment to creating an environment where all residents feel seen and valued. The policy was created in consultation and has support of 2 Canadian Research Chairs, or CRCs, Dr. Lauren Beck, Professor of Visual Arts and Material Culture Studies, CRC and Intercultural Encounter, and Dr. Lauren Bonner, Associate Professor of Racial Justice and African Diaspora Migration in the Atlantic Region, and Dr. Heather McLeod-Leslie, Senior Archaeologist and Manager of Archaeology and Research with the Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative. Their endorsement highlights the policy's alignment with the best practices and community interests. Approval of the asset naming policy is not just a symbolic act, but a meaningful step towards reconciliation, education, community building, and justice. By recognizing and honoring the histories and contributions of Mi'kmaq, African Nova Scotian, and other historically excluded communities that have helped build the Kings County region, we are making a great step towards the municipality's vision of being a community of communities where all people belong. The creation of this policy would not have been possible without our cross-divisional team and stakeholders. Although I am the person presenting to you today, I would like to acknowledge Lindsay Halliday, Monica Beaton, Katrina Roofs, Charissa Sanche, Samuel Lopez Matos, and Brittany Traynor for their ongoing contributions to this work. Your effort, guidance, and support on this project have been and will continue to be invaluable. There are no financial implications to this decision outside of existing budgets. Any costs associated with naming or renaming would be presented to Council at the time of the request. This work is connected to the implementation of the strategy for belonging and aligns with the strong communities pillar for the strategic plan. For implementation, the policy will be submitted to Council for consideration. If adopted, the policy will be posted on the municipal website. The asset naming policy will be used for naming and or renaming municipal assets that honor a history of colonial and or oppressive figures or actions from historically excluded communities, particularly Indigenous and African Nova Scotian communities. Engagement came through the strategy for belonging and would take place on a case-by-case basis at the time of the request. Committee of the Whole may choose not to recommend Municipal Council adopt the asset naming policy and provide directions to staff regarding this item in the strategy for belonging. We recommend that the Committee of the Whole recommend Municipal Council adopt policy admin 01025 asset naming. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Afuri. Could you back up one slide there?
Yes.
Is that, no, on your slides.
Oh, yes, sorry.
I just wanted to get the resolution back on the screen so that it's really right at the end.
Oh, the recommendation slide, sorry.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Ms. Afuri, if you'd stay there for a moment. Any questions arising from Ms. Afuri's presentation? Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for your presentation and your hard work, all of your team. Just wanted to know, under 7.1, the name removal, it says that a name removal application has to come in. Where is the application and who can get it?
Through you, Mayor, I would like to defer the question to Brittany.
Fine.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Granger. With the adoption of the policy by Municipal Council, an SOP will be developed that clearly outlines that, and that will also be published. But it will come to community development staff and then flow through a process that includes the diversity committee, so that there's extra eyes on it. And then a recommendation will come to council through them.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
That response, Councillor? Are there any other questions of the presenter? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
We'll
Mayor.
deal with the recommendation if you just leave that on the screen, please.
Thank you.
So, arising out of the presentation, many things were discussed. It's, as has been stated, very much in line with our strategy for belonging, our very intentional outreach to all the communities mentioned in the presentation, and the fact that we want to be seen to be actually acting and setting an example for the people within our municipality. The recommendation is that this committee recommend that to municipal council that it provide 7 days notice per section 48 sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act to adopt policy admin 01024 asset naming as detailed in the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Burgess, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Killam. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion is unanimously passed. Thank you. Going to item E of number 7, Bylaw 113, deed transfer tax, first reading. Mr. Frost, our Deputy CAO, will be presenting on this particular item.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. So I'm here today to present, as previously directed, discussion on a deed transfer tax. So the intent today would be that the Committee of the Whole discuss and recommend to Council the first reading of a proposed deed transfer tax bylaw. So the deed transfer tax has been in Nova Scotia for many years, which came into effect back in 1968 with the Deed Transfer Tax Act. Municipalities are given the authority to apply a deed transfer tax under the current MGA, which is Part 5, called Deed Transfers, and is covered in sections 101 to 110. So basically, a deed transfer tax is paid when a property changes hands, with a few exemptions or exceptions, and is calculated based on the sale price of the property and can be applied up to 1.5% of that sale price. So deed transfer tax in Nova Scotia, there are currently 48 of 49 municipalities in Nova Scotia that do not have a deed have a deed transfer tax. My apologies. The municipality of the County of Kings is the only municipality that does not have a deed transfer tax. So of the 48 municipalities that do have a deed transfer tax, 27 of the 48 have a 1.5% deed transfer tax. Kentville, as you likely know, just recently implemented theirs, which began July 1st, 2024 at 1.5%. 17 of the 48 have a 1% deed transfer tax, 3 have a 1.25, and 1 has a 0.5% deed transfer tax. So to give you an idea of some comparison revenues, we pulled some 5-year data from different municipalities across the province. So just, when we look at comparable municipalities, and of course Lunenburg, Pictou, and Colchester are all smaller than the municipality of the County of Kings, but we see that their average deed transfer tax per year is somewhere between $1 million and just under $2.5 million for those 3 municipalities, and even some of the smaller units locally receive quite a bit as well. You see Wolfville at $540,000 a year, and Berwick at $125,000. So then, of course, over the past 5 years, that has generated millions of dollars for each of these municipalities. HRM, just to put it in context for you a little bit, averages about $38 million per year in deed transfer tax. And in, I believe it was 2021, just after COVID, when there was a big increase in sales, that actually increased up to $81 million per year. So deed transfer tax revenue in Kings, and what could it look like? So here's the last 6 years of sales data in Kings County. So you can see that the sales have ranged from about $267 million to a high in 2021 of $430 million. So if a 1.5% deed transfer tax had been applied to that, the average revenue received from a deed transfer tax would have been just under $5.5 million a year, with a minimum of just over $4 million and a maximum of $6.45 million in 2021. So just a note that the implementation of a deed-transfer tax in the municipality could fully fund the municipality of the County Kings portion of a rec complex. A rec complex would be a much larger attraction than a deed-transfer tax would be a deterrent. Some additional deed-transfer tax points. MOK, one of the arguments is that not having a deed-transfer tax in place increases possible growth in Kings County. We have not seen that over the past 25 years. When you look at comparable areas that have had a deed-transfer tax in place over the same period, their population growth or attraction has been as good, if not better, than the municipality of the County of Kings. It's important to note that there's already a provincial non-resident deed transfer tax in place across the province, so including Kings County. So even though our municipality is not currently receiving any benefit, there are still people that are paying a deed transfer tax if they purchase property in Kings County if they are out a non-resident of the province. To fund the same amount of revenue, council would have to either increase the residential rate by 12 cents or the commercial rate by $1.18 to have the same revenue impact. So the proposed deed transfer tax bylaw that we're putting before you today is for 1.5% of the value of the property transferred. As most bylaws do with deed transfer as per the MGA, it would constitute a lien on the property if not paid. It is collected by the Registry of Deeds automatically and basically sent to the municipality. And there are exemptions in the MGA that are applied in this bylaw as per the MGA, and it would become effective November 1st, 2024. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I would put the recommendation in front of you and certainly open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Any questions of Mr. Frost on his presentation? Councillor Killen.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr. Frost. Regarding the provincial deed transfer tax that was mentioned, they apply it to, they receive monies from each municipality for property sold. Is that what I'm hearing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Killam. So any non-provincial, so non-resident of the province that purchases property in Nova Scotia pay a 5% deed transfer tax. So it doesn't matter where it is in the province that's applied.
Does the province rebate the municipality that this happens?
No, the municipality receives no benefit of that provincial rebate. It's a provincial
I understand.
tax,
I just thought we're... Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Killam. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just curious what would happen if we go forward with this proposal, collecting the deed transfer tax. If we weren't collecting or using that money towards a special project, what would we do with that money? Where would it go?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Allen. So certain municipalities do different things with their deed transfer tax revenue. Some municipalities use it as general revenue and others apply it to particular projects. Some, and what I would suggest is that if there's interest from council that we could develop a policy that would state the purpose of the deed transfer tax, which some municipalities have done to say it's specifically used for special projects or large projects or whatever it might be, or infrastructure or whatever the decision would be.
That would come later.
You could develop a policy around that, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Rob, have we surveyed the agricultural end of this, Federation of Agriculture, to see how much of a burden this would be on farming? As you see up and down the valley, all these new hen barns and new lands and a lot of farming going on, and that's what we're all about here in the Annapolis Valley, especially in Kings County. So I was just wondering if, this might be a burden on the farming community.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Harding, no, we have not surveyed the agriculture industry per se. There is some exemptions related to the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board. To anybody that's borrowing under the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, that is one of the exemptions, so there is some relief in that aspect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. According to the documentation that you put before us, that we can implement a deed transfer tax in a range of 1 to 1.5%, correct?
0 to 1.5, yes.
Oh, okay. I think 0 is out of the question, considering the conversation we're having at the moment. But I'm curious to know why we went right in for the 1.5 and didn't at least see figures that would have shown us what it would have been at 1 and say 1.25. Just for curiosity's sake, I'm just wondering why we went right for the 1.5.
I had included, I guess I didn't. So, I mean, certainly we could go back and look at that. We did look at it for sure. I think when we talk about the potential for some of the projects that we have before us, that a 1% deed transfer tax, it becomes a bit marginal to pay for some of the projects that we've talked about, whereas the 1.5 ensures that we would be able to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Just wondering, does the deed transfer tax get updated annually, semi-annually? Does it move? How often does it move?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Granger, it's basically once it's put in place, it's left in place until council decides to make a change. So I noted in one of the slides here, I noted that I think it was Colchester just increased their deed transfer tax. They had a 1% and they just increased it to 1.5 this year. So it can be changed once it's in place.
Great, thank you.
But to be clear, you can't go above 1.5 under the legislation.
You can't go above.
Yeah. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions of clarification? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Frost. If someone's prepared to move the recommendation to council, and to explain to everyone present, this is a committee that's sitting here, and when we pass a motion, it's by way of recommendation to the council itself, and then the council has a second shot at the debate on the merits of whatever issue we refer to them. They can, even if it's passed and by way of recommendation, there's that opportunity for the second examination and further thought, and it's conceivable the votes could change. So is someone prepared to move this recommendation? Moved by Councillor Granger, seconded by Councillor Killam. Any discussion then on the motion? Councillor Burgess.
Yes, I'm going to vote in favor of this to go to council, but I'm just wondering if when we are in council, if it is possible, maybe not, it may not be possible right away, but to see what the difference is, as Councillor Armstrong had said, just to see what the other figures would look like as well, just so we can have something to compare it to.
It's a fair request. Thanks. We'll see that happens. Councillor Armstrong.
In the same vein as Councillor Burgess just mentioned, I noticed that this is coming directly from this agenda to the agenda for the special council following this meeting. And we do have 3 councillors missing. So I would be more, I would like to hear these figures that are coming, that might come as Councillor Burgess asked, but I would also like the three councillors that are missing to have an opportunity. I know it's only first reading and that there are other steps involved, but I'd like to hear their opinion. And there's no guarantee they're going to necessarily all be here as we move forward.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you. There would, of course, be an opportunity at the council session following this to table the motion to await what you've just expressed, if you wish to make that motion at that time. Any other discussion? I've made it clear, I think, that my position with respect to this is that we are the only municipality in the province of Nova Scotia that does not have this source of revenue, and we would not need this source of revenue, although that would leave us as an island within the province. That's not a bad thing necessarily. And it would, on a cumulative basis, leave us far behind the revenues that are being received by every other municipality in the province. Notwithstanding all that, my view on the motion is that if we are to have this passed, at the end of the day, that the monies be used specifically to advance recreation within the municipality of the County of Kings, which would mean also the support of the rec complex, if that comes to be. And if there's excess, then there are lots of other recreation opportunities, whether it be active transportation or otherwise, to which the remainder of the funds could flow. So I hope to see that at the end of the day as part of the motion. But for the purposes of moving this along to council, I'm prepared to support the motion as it currently exists. So the recommendation is that this committee recommend to municipal council that it give first reading to the proposed deed transfer tax bylaw as attached to the July 16th, 2024 Committee of the Whole agenda. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion's passed with one negative vote. Thank you. Moving on to item 7E, bylaw 113, deed transfer tax. I'm sorry, that's just what we did. Item 8, rather, engineering and public works, award of contract 24-13, lift station upgrades. And Mr. Kerrigan is here to present on that. Mr. Kerrigan, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As you can see, this presentation and request for decision was actually prepared by Lewis Pearson. I am not Lewis Pearson, but I'm going to do my best to step in for him. He's on vacation and his flight did not return in time to present. So we are here today to ask for award of contract by council for contract 24-13 for lift station upgrades, which is an annual infrastructure improvement project that is conducted and requested by Public Works. 2024 contract relates to installing new and retrofitted infrastructure at 3 of the current municipal lift pump stations. The function of the lift stations is to basically take the gravity sewers that exist in the municipality and pump that sewage to a higher location where they will then flow to another potential lift station through that network and end up at a sewer treatment plant. The resulting upgrade of this sewer infrastructure will reduce emergency repairs, improve functionality of the 3 lift stations, and intended to reduce long-term operational costs. The first of the 3 lift stations being proposed for award of contract is Cambridge number 2 lift station. The upgrade consists of the relocation of the lift station and replacement of the station components. The relocation of this lift station infrastructure is being performed to improve operational safety of inspections and the maintenance work currently being done. This lift station currently sits in highway number 1 in the right-of-way, and very unsafe location with the speed of the traffic on highway 1 in Cambridge. So we're looking to move that lift station to a new location around the corner where it's out of the right-of-way of highway 1. North Kentville AT3 lift station upgrade includes supply of new replacement pumps and associated equipment to retrofit from a below-grade pump station to an above-ground pump station. And I believe I missed one when the clicker wasn't working. The third is Coldbrook 4 lift station. This upgrade consists of an improvement in functionality with the addition of a separate pump chamber from the existing wet well. On July 5th, our procurement team prior to July 5th, procurement team released the tender. On July 5th was the closing. 2 bids were submitted for this public tender. Staff reviewed the proposed bids for completeness and to propose this award to the lowest bidder per the tender call. Just of note, the substantial completion of this project is required by March 14th, 2025 as per the tender agreement. Financial implications of this contract award, the cost would be $1,436,266.90, including non-recoverable HST, which is within budget capacity approved budget capacity for this project. Tender project costs would be funded through a combination of capital reserves, ICIP funding, or investing in Canada infrastructure programming funding, and long-term debt, with the numbers shown below on the screen. And here's the recommendation for council, so you choose.
Thank you, Mr. Kerrigan. Any questions of Mr. Kerrigan on his presentation? If there are none, thank you, Mr. Kerrigan. The recommendation is that this committee of the whole recommended municipal council to award contract 23-13 lift station upgrades to Mid-Valley Construction Limited for $1,436,266.90, including non-recoverable HST, as described in the request for decision dated this date. Any discussion on the motion? We got a mover and seconder on this? No. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Burgess and Councillor Killen. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. A break has been requested. As we always break just before your presentations, so if you wouldn't mind, we're going to step down for 15 minutes. If you could take your seats, please, we're ready to resume the session. And we're starting now, as I highlighted just before we left, with item 8B, Bylaw 112, Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, the first reading. And Mr. Barr is going to present on this. Mr. Barr, when you're ready.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and good morning, Council. Myself and Sarah Burko, our new climate change project specialist, will be co-presenting this RFD that we put in front of you. So as the title says, it's related to Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, Bylaw 112. So from a discussion point of view, some history associated with this request for decision that we have. So obviously the 2021-2024 strategic plan contains a specific project about implementing a property assessed clean energy, referred to as PACE program. So in that regard, in August of 2023, the municipality issued a request for expression of interest. We wanted to kind of see what ideas there were out there relative to a PACE program, like what type of implementation might be possible, whether we would go at it ourselves, see if we would be able to do something that was more turnkey, something that might be targeted, something that might be general. So we put out the REOI and got a couple of responses associated with that. We then evaluated those responses and kind of took some of the information from that to kind of help make some decisions about what we wanted to present from the municipality. And then in December of 2023, we issued a non-binding request for proposal, an NRFP, for a general PACE program. From that, we did get one response. It was from Queen Foundation. They're a Nova Scotia-based independent non-governmental environmental charity. And they've developed what they term a clean energy financing program, and there's currently 12 other municipalities within Nova Scotia that they deliver their PACE programs with. So the municipality intends to award the NRFP to Queen Foundation to move this project forward. And the cost associated with that falls within the procurement policy for the CAO's approval side of things. We'll talk a little bit about that in terms of next steps. So obviously you need to have a bylaw in place. So a PACE program bylaw provides the method by which the municipality would be able to enforce payment of financing owed by a homeowner. So I haven't gone into a lot of detail about the actual PACE program and the history of it. In the origin section of the RFD, there's a previous presentation that was made to council that goes into great details about it. So in this presentation, we kind of skipped over that. But as part of that, you need a bylaw to be able to enforce the financing payment that would be owed by the homeowner. So bylaws are enabled under Section 81A1 of the Municipal Government Act and under Section 81A2D of the MGA. It is a first lien on property. So following the bylaw implementation, we would have some work to do with Queen Foundation that we would end up bringing back to council. So we would look to develop a new PACE program policy that would identify items such as the ones that are listed here. So a list of all the exact energy upgrades that would be eligible under the PACE program, the financing rate the municipality would offer and the terms, the maximum individual financing amount per property owner, the maximum annual grant financing amount, so what we would have in a municipality that we'd be willing to do, the program fees associated with it, those vary obviously from municipality to municipality, and the payment frequency that would be required. Sometimes it's monthly, sometimes it's semi-annual, sometimes it's on an annual basis. So some of those program details would have to be worked out and embedded into a policy. We would also update our fees policy to kind of reflect that and make sure that everything's embedded in policy before moving forward. I'll pass it over to Sarah now.
And as far as financial implications, there is no significant cost associated with putting the PACE program bylaw in place. The PACE program is included in the 2024-2025 budget as Project 24-3405, which includes funding for the upfront implementation costs. For implementation, proceed with bylaw approval process as detailed in Part 7 of the Municipal Government Act. We will develop a PACE program policy and amend our fees policy for Council's review and approval. And we will continue with the PACE program implementation. For engagement, implementation of a PACE program was discussed at the previous Committee of the Whole included in the 2021-2024 strategic plan. Development of a PACE program was included in the Climate Mitigation and Asset Action Plan, which was previously adopted by Council. PACE program implementation was included in the 2024-25 budget, previously approved by Council. A minimum 14 days notice prior to second reading provides an opportunity for public comment prior to adoption of the bylaw. With that said, our recommendation is that Committee of a Whole recommend Municipal Council give first reading to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program Bylaw, Bylaw 112, as attached to the July 16th, 2024 Committee of a Whole agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burko. My apologies for not recognizing you when I was looking down, and when I looked up, I just saw that huge individual standing beside you.
I had to move the mic.
Questions of clarification or otherwise of the presenters? Councillor Armstrong.
Wow. I'm not sure that this is enough information for me, but anyway, I noticed that at the top of the page that the origin on this, it was March 8th of 2021 when we directed the CAO to issue a request for proposals, and now it is July of 2024. That's a big gap. So is it that we haven't been doing anything on it, or that it's so involved that it's taken us 3 years to get to this point?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Armstrong. So we have gone through a number of climate change specialists associated with that have taken on the file, including the EMV division that took over the file as well. So there has been some logistic issues associated with staff turnover associated with it. But on top of that, though, it is whether you want to undertake like a targeted program that would specifically target specific initiatives, or a general program, or whether residential, commercial, like there's aspects of it that we wanted to make sure that we did a good analysis associated with it. We did, like it was a year ago that we developed the REOI to try and go out and see what was out there to help us with that decision making. So there's a number of factors that led to that. It's been higher on our radar, but it's bumped around from a number of different staff members. It's kind of been passed over to the finance department as well during a time when there was some turnover. So we're happy now to be at the point where Sarah and I kind of picked it up and ran with it and was able to bring it to this one. But yes, it has. You're correct. It has been on the docket for a long time.
Okay. I was just going to say I've got more questions, so don't get too happy yet. What is the role of clean energy? Are they just helping us set this up? Do they carry the financing, or do they just show us how to put in place application forms, what equipment would be covered? You know, are they just there as a resource?
Okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor, through the councillor. So Clean Foundation will, in the initial year, they will obviously help us with creating our policies and reviewing our bylaws and that kind of stuff in terms of launching it off. They also help promote and advertise it and whatnot. They also provide all the information and packaging for the homeowners. So they have contractors that they identify, but they don't have any that are recommended to use. But they handle everything with the property owner. So if the property owner is applying to participate in the program, they go through our specifications about what's required, what parameters you have to meet. They determine whether they meet the approval or not within the guidelines that we would have and the funding amounts and everything associated with that. They give authorization to them. They would actually be the program administrator that's identified in the bylaw. And then from that point, they would end up paying the contractor directly for it. They maintain the information associated with everything for the homeowner. Then they send an invoice to us that we reconcile against everything that they would have, and to pay them back. It's usually done on like a monthly basis, but usually at the end of the entire project. A few times there might be situations where they might need like an advance or something if there's a larger project that's being undertaken. but they handle all of the financing associated with it in the entire file, and then provide it to us, saying, okay, this is now complete. You're able to start charging, or you would end up setting up that loan with the individual's homeowners. But they manage everything with the homeowners. They're the go-between. They work with like Efficiency Nova Scotia and other organizations that do the energy assessments that's required up front in order to identify what projects they might be undertaking. So they do all of the heavy lifting associated with every application and the entire program.
So in essence, we're a finance company.
Yeah, exactly. We provide the financing.
We're the money.
Yeah, we provide
That's
the financing and the mechanism by which we're able to collect it, tying it to individuals' tax accounts.
Tax, okay. And I just have one more. Are we looking at a list of approved contractors? Because, I mean, I'm not trying to be nasty, but there are, companies out there that are fly-by-night. They come in, they slap a heat pump on your wall, and you never see them again. And if you get any kind of problem with them, they're never, ever seen again. So that becomes clean energy's problem, or that becomes our problem. So personally, I would prefer to see a list of preferred contractors, that these are the 5 that you can use. We know that they're good. We know that they're going to come back. We know that they stand by their product. But rather than just opening it up to the floodgates to any and all. I mean, all you have to do is go on Facebook and somebody will say, well, who's a good, heat pump installer? There's everything from soup to nuts there. And then you get the good comments and the bad comments. So, I mean, no one has an idea of where they're supposed to go or who. So in a situation like this, I'd like to see a list of approved contractors that only those would be able to use.
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor. So typically with these programs, you would not see the municipality get involved with an approved list of suppliers. So the Queen Foundation does have recommended suppliers. It's facilitated as part of the energy assessment as well. We did pose that question to them. They said that they haven't run into those types of issues. I realize that they do occur, and there are issues like that, and it was a concern of ours. One way that we wanted to try and mitigate, and we're going to debate this as part of going through the policy element, and that would be something to kind of attach something like that, probably more so with the policy side of things, was about potentially looking at whether we would get into credit checks and stuff associated with the individuals to try and at least protect the homeowners basically from themselves from a financing point of view. But we haven't contemplated getting into developing and maintaining an approved supplier list that you could only use from that particular list of individuals. Recommended, sure. These are the ones that we've used before. These are the recommended vendors that we've used in the past. That resource would be there with Queen Foundation. Wouldn't be something I would recommend the municipality would get involved in directly.
Yeah, and just to close, the only reason I bring this up is in my other life, I worked with, financing heat pump installation, installation of heat pump systems for Nova Scotia Power. And our company was an approved installer for Nova Scotia Power. They couldn't go to Joe Blow next door or Joe Blow on that side. We were an approved Nova Scotia heat pump installer. Right. And we were the only ones they could have the installation financed through. And that worked incredibly well. And that's what I'd like to see with this, because it gives a level of security not only for us as the lender, but also for the people that are having it installed. So that's my only comment.
As we go through the policy development side of it, we'll engage with Queen Foundation more on that particular topic and bring back recommendations to council in that area.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kittle.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'm trying to understand this a bit better. In other words, in maybe simpler terms, this program is offered to property owners that want to, as Councillor Armstrong had mentioned, wants to put in heat pumps, or they want to put solar on their roofs and this sort of thing. I'm just trying to clarify what it actually does and possibly what the future lies with that kind of a program, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Killam. So that's what we'll specify in the policy when we bring that to council to look at, is exactly what energy efficiency upgrades would be applicable. I will say I anticipate that we'll be recommending solar panels, heat pumps, insulation. You know, if there's improvements that can happen, like, you know, windows, door, like there's things from an energy efficiency point of view that are typically recommended as part of that energy assessment perspective of, you know, if you put foundation, you know, insulation, you know, in your basement or in your roof or in your walls. Like, so we see it as being a more general program, not targeted to just solar panels or just to heat pumps. Right. It would be all energy efficiency. Mm-hmm. But all those details associated with it will be contained in the recommended policy. So what this is basically a financing program to enable individuals to be able to tap in what will hopefully be a lower interest rate, flexible terms. You can repay it sooner if you want to. Go with a full term, which, you know, might be over 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Like, all those details will be laid out in a specific policy that, you know, would apply to the program. But it's very much as a financing program, the way that Councillor Armstrong has indicated it.
Right. So this applies basically to residential property owners, not possibly small community groups that want to do something with their halls or this kind of thing.
Correct. Right now, with Queen Foundation, they only have a residential program that's in place. We have talked to them about whether institutional or commercial applications might be possible in the future, and they are looking into it, but at this point, we would only be recommending a residential.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I like the idea of it. I just wondered if you know or have any idea year one, year two, where financially where we'd be, or is that too early yet?
Do you mind just clarifying what you mean, financially where would be?
Well, I just wonder what the cost to the county would be, like year one, year two, if we have any idea.
I see. In terms of uptake.
According to how many people, I guess, sign on too, right? So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Harding. So every program around the province has varying levels of success. Okay. It really depends on application fees, interest rates, terms, like, so how attractive you make it as an option for homeowners will depend on, it will dictate the uptake that you have. So there's some municipalities that provide, you know, some kind of subsidy or, you know, reduced kind of application fee. They'll see more uptake associated with it, or lower interest rate that might be tied at a set rate, or whether it floats with prime. So there's all kinds of variables that will impact that. The big thing that you see is that there are some municipalities that have been fully subscribed in their programs, and others that, you know, don't promote it as much. Queen Foundation was pretty blunt in our meeting with them to say the ones that are promoting it and have good terms are seeing great success and are hitting their full caps. Others that it's more of a sake of just doing it, that they may not be getting as much uptake as what they would like. So until we kind of model the policy and kind of see what others are doing, I don't have that information to kind of anticipate what it would be. It will be obviously a cash outlay associated with, you know, providing and paying the contractors, but the interest rates will make sure that they are set such that will fully inform council in terms of what you can expect from a return associated with the proposed interest rates relative to what, you know, currently might be being maintained on our reserve accounts and stuff. We'll make sure that any policy recommendation will kind of outline some of those financial details.
Thank you very much. Knowing you, we know we're in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong for the second time.
I guess my other question is you mentioned cap. So every budget year there would be a capped amount that we would put into our budget to finance these particular applications, applications.
Correct. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Armstrong, there would be both a cap on what the maximum amount that one individual could borrow, one homeowner could borrow, and a cap on what would be there for the program.
Right.
And then people would fall into a wait list type thing.
Yep. And so is there a cap going forward? Like if you've got 10,000 the first year and 1,000 of that gets paid back, so then you're 9,000 in, then you add another 10,000, so then you're 19. So after 5 years, what would be the maximum amount that you would see? Because, you know, there's only so much drop off when you're paying monthly. So you're always going to be carrying a balance, a descending balance, but still.
We'd have to identify that.
Do you anticipate there being an...
I anticipate it probably being less tied to the outstanding balance amount and more about how much would we commit to max lend out in any one given year. I think, but it's all to be crafted within the policy that'll come back to council with a recommendation. But that's probably how they're typically kind of formed in other municipalities. But we're going to research that more with Queen Foundation and bring a recommendation with the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions of clarification?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Or questions, period? So, obviously, not perhaps so obviously, or I wouldn't be saying it and asking for your response on it, but the purpose of the program is to reduce carbon emissions and encourage people to choose some clean alternative to fossil fuels. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And part of the process that will be done, and it's identified in the bylaw, that there has to be a greater than 1-to-1 ratio associated with the savings to debt that's incurred. So they do an analysis of what's going to happen from a financial savings, and obviously an energy consumption reduction and environmental improvements. There has to be a positive impact relative to the cost that's being incurred. They do that analysis, and no project's able to go forward without that. So obviously it's very much a financial based one, but the intent is obviously that it's tied to energy consumption reduction.
Thank you. Have you had any discussions with Clean Foundation or any knowledge in-house regarding the project that Stratford PEI, the town of Wolfville, and one other town in the Atlantic provinces entered into so that they could offer these loans at 0% interest?
So Queen Foundation aren't involved in either of those. I think both those are through Pace Atlantic. And I know that there was some federal funding that was available to kind of help subsidize both the interest rates and the application fee associated with some of those programs. I think dating back several years ago now, that was associated with it. There are opportunities for us to look at some of that, particularly with some other programs that might be available now that we'll explore more. But that's where those originated from, with specific funding associated with that, and those were done through Pace Atlantic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentations. Those are all the questions that we have.
Thank you.
So looking now at the recommendation, Council, is that this committee recommend to Municipal Council that it give first reading to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, or PACE, bylaw, being bylaw 112 is attached to the minutes of this, or the package presented before us today on the Committee of the Whole agenda. Do I have a mover of the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Killam. Discussion on the motion? No discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. Going to item 9, Board, Committee, and Conference reports. Other than those that have been submitted in writing, are there any verbal reports to be given? No verbal reports. You'll see in your package a report from me regarding the Atlantic Mayors Congress, which is an event held annually for mayors within the Atlantic provinces, and that's an exchange of information and presentations conducted much on the format of the NSFM, only in my experience I'm finding it a cleaner, less cumbersome process, and I'm recommending that this municipality continue to see that its mayor goes to that, and that the organization continues to belong to it. And then similarly with the International Network of Michelin Cities, which to date has been exclusive to cities or areas in which Michelin plants were established, but has now changed its policy so that it's open to all cities, and in the word cities, they're including municipalities and towns, to become members of the organization. It's international, which makes it, opens up opportunities for example, for this municipality to gather in talent from this municipality within its building and contact other cities and countries in other countries to exchange information back and forth that would be pertinent to their progress. And similarly, they're bringing in university students and younger people for exchanges. So I'm recommending that that continue to be carried on the books of the county in future. On the Regional Emergency Management Advisory Committee, Dan Stovall has submitted a report that you have in your package. There being no verbal reports either with respect to committees of council or external boards of committees, then I'm looking for a motion to receive the reports that have been submitted. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Harding. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the meeting? Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Mayor. As probably everyone knows, it's been a very busy time in Halls Harbor with the road washout, and I know that it was appreciated that you, the mayor, and Cody Blois and John Lohr had visited the harbor to see the damage. And I think they're quite aware that the community is going to be asking for some emergency funding to come forward to try to get that fixed before the tourism season really gets going. It's already very busy over there, and there's a lot of confusion as to how to get to one side of the harbor and to the other and the different roads that are necessary. But I just wanted to point out that it was very appreciated by the community that all levels of government were there, and it was also expressed with respect to the support this municipality has given to the major project that hopefully will prevent maybe future things happening there like we had on Friday night. I just wanted to also mention that through Facebook, the number of shares that went out with the information of how the municipality participated and the hopes that the province and the feds will come aboard to get this fixed as soon as possible. But it was almost 150,000 shares went out on Facebook regarding the project, regarding the problems that we're having over there, and we're just hoping that we can get a speedy fix over there. But I don't know. There will be probably a formal ask that the municipality support in principle going for emergency funding from the province and the feds to get this underway. I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'm awfully glad this municipality was on the right side of the ledger with 150,000 shares.
Yes, impressive.
But I, with you, I was impressed with the fact that other levels of government were personally present on the spot to have an active discussion with the businesses and the community at the time. And I'm sure that you'll find this municipality, your community, Halls Harbor, will find this municipality as a supportive partner in seeing that you can quickly get a Bailey Bridge in there and as a temporary, and you'll get support for the community putting in a permanent fix at the end of the day. And I'm talking now about moral support, not financial support. Because,
I understand.
Because it's the other levels of government that have to do with harbors and bridges and so on.
Just on a note that was brought to me recently is that it was suggested that rubber boots be put in the harbor so people can walk from one side to the other at low tide, of course.
So that's the temporary fix.
A temporary fix.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Any other business to come before the meeting? Seeing none, then comments from the public? Yes, please. Do you know where the magic, okay, there you go.
Hi, my name is Christina Sappington. I wanted to say that a lot of times when we have things like asset naming policy, it kind of takes the humanity out of what we're actually discussing, and I wanted to congratulate the team who, one member is still here, but I really thought they deserved congratulations for all the hard work and the sigh of, I don't know them personally, but the sigh of relief that they had once it was passed showed that they were really concerned that their hard work would be for something. I had the pleasure of going to the bridge renaming ceremony in Kentville. I took my 3 children there. And the only reason why I want to speak is I feel like quite often, even in social media, you hear people that say comments like, oh, you're erasing history and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to say that quite the contrary. As a member of the public and a mother with my children, we actually learned a lot more history that we wouldn't have learned had we not renamed the road. And then also, I feel like the public engagement that was there that night was so memorable for my family. The police stopped traffic, guided people as there was drumming. There was a ceremony involving smudging. And so it was not only empowering, but it was such a learning experience to learn about the culture. And we literally broke bread. There was bannock served. And I just hope that going forward, again, even though it's called asset naming policy, I hope that going forward that it isn't just a matter of switching the name of the road, that that public engagement will continue with this process. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And I would just say that I know it seems impersonal to say asset. On the other hand, there's more than roads. There's buildings and there's monuments and there's rivers and so on. So it's pretty hard to encompass everything without trying to use one word to do it. So we didn't mean to offend, that's all I'm saying. Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Burgess.
Just in addition to the community engagement piece, as we work through the strategy of belonging and our phenomenal team that we have here in the realm of diversity, nothing for community without community is something that we often hear here. So I just wanted to let the members of the public know that when we make those decisions and when our teams are working, they are working diligently to make sure that community that will be affected or that will be implementing change is involved in the change. So I just want to let those who may not know that that's one thing that the municipality strives for, and our team is phenomenal in ensuring that we don't do anything for community without community involvement. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you, Councillor, for clarification. Any other comments from the public? The mic is still on.
Hello. Thank you for a very interesting meeting. I just noted a few things going along, and I didn't unfortunately make notes when I was reading the agenda package, so a couple of my comments are lacking. Specific quotes. My first comment was about the presentation regarding the proclamations about the fact that there are laws that treat persons unequally, and obviously the Indian Act is one such law, but I just wonder, whether it's really the laws that are the problem or if it's their interpretation and implementation. And it seems to me that if there are indeed laws that are not treating all persons equally, that really needs to be addressed with some urgency. Then my second point, I was curious with the Police Advisory Board why there would be one person appointed by the Minister of Justice. Can anyone?
That's the legislation requires that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Easy answer. For asset naming, it was wonderful to just hear this point raised, and also in the agenda, this is the part where I didn't bring the quote with me, but in the agenda package, there was one use in the preamble that used the word equity, and I kind of questioned the use of that word there and wondered if the word equality wouldn't be the more appropriate one. And I also wanted to say that for name changes, it would benefit from a genealogy of names displayed publicly so that there is that learning of history, as we just heard about, and also so that the history becomes more accurate and transparent, because of course, there's a constant game of erasure that happens around the world as one name gets replaced with another. So, for the deed transfer tax, I wanted to say that I really would prefer that we don't go up to the maximum amount, because housing costs are already astronomical. Then I'm constantly wanting my kids to move back home, you know. So now the province has slapped the 5%, and now, you know, it just seems like I understand the need for money, but it also seems a little odd to pin all that on homeowners. And I really appreciated all the questions that came up. Now, this PACE program, I was curious, are the upgrades going to be required, or are those voluntary?
Voluntary.
Thank goodness, because all this talk about green energy, the thing that doesn't really get talked about so much is self-sufficiency, which is very important in this uncertain world. So anyway, I'm feeling a little nervous about that, so I'll be interested to follow it and see how things go. And I was curious about the Michelin cities. Are they related in any way to the Partners for Climate Protection? Is there a link between those two organizations?
No. The Michelin Cities organization meets once every 2 years in a different location, depending on the city that bid to be the host. And its primary theme is the circular economy. So it's creating an economy that can exist by recycling, reusing, repurposing, and getting around as much as one can the use of fossil fuels.
Okay, and is it tied in with?
It's becoming broader in terms of offering educational opportunities and inviting exchanges between communities across the world.
So is it tied in with ICLEI or the UN sustainability?
No, it's
completely separate from that.
Completely separate, yeah.
Okay. And then the last point I wanted to raise, which is not part of today's agenda, but I just wanted to note that I'm extremely dismayed that you've gone for electronic voting only. So, that's it.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else wish to comment to council from the public? No? Thank you for sitting through all this. I know it's a burden for you, and it's a pleasure for us, I have to say. So thanks once again, and I'm looking for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Harding. No discussion on such a motion. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. Thank you. We are adjourned. Now, we have a council meeting this afternoon. We have lunch coming in. I'm not sure whether it's here yet. Not yet. When do we expect it? 11:50. So I look to council, since we won't be having lunch arriving until 11:50 as to whether council wishes to proceed with the special opening of the special council meeting. The answer is yes. And we will adjourn when lunch arrives and reconvene subsequent to that. So I'm opening the special council meeting for Tuesday, July the 16th, 2024, and we'll begin with roll call, please. Are we online, Haley? Thank you. All of council is here, with the exception of Councillors Hurtle, Deputy Mayor Lutz, and Councillor Davison. Since earlier today, the beginning of the meeting of Committee of the Whole, it's come to my attention that Councillor Davison is in transit from Halifax and intends to be here. So for the purposes of this meeting, I'm looking for a motion only to excuse Councillor Hurtle and Deputy Mayor Lutz based upon their prior communications. Do I have a mover of the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Harding. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That motion's unanimously passed. Thank you. You've had an opportunity to review the agenda for this meeting. Is there any, if there are no errors or omissions to be pointed out, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Granger, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. And of course, in doing so, you've had an opportunity to review the agenda and determine whether or not there is any item on the agenda with which you might have a conflict of interest. This motion to approve has been unanimously passed. So if you have an item of conflict of interest, please declare it now. Seeing none, we'll move to item 4, approval of minutes. One motion to approve both sets of minutes would be in order for the minutes of July 2nd, 2024, which have been circulated, and the special council meeting of July 4th, 2024, regarding the extension of the IMSA for King's Transit and Valley Waste. Do I have a mover of the motion, please? Councillor Allen, seconder. Councillor Harding, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. Is there any business arising from any of those minutes of the 2nd or the 4th of July? I see none. The motion has been approved. Moving on to item 6, administration, amendments to policy FIN 05002, council and committee remuneration. Adoption, the motion to approve the amended policy would be in order. Do we have a recommended motion for the screen or no? It's been recommended that municipal council adopt amendments to policy FIN 05002, council and committee remuneration, to take effect with the council elected in October of 2024, in accordance with the July 5th, 2022 council motion and as attached to the July 16th, 2024 council agenda, with which you are all familiar, having discussed it and debated it on a previous occasion. Someone prepared to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Granger. Is there debate or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. It's unanimously passed. Thank you. And item 6B, policy PRO 10005, Fire and Emergency Services Providers Funding Policy. It's been recommended that Municipal Council adopt policy PRO 10005, Fire and Emergency Services Providers Funding, as attached to the July 16th, 2024 Council agenda. Could I have a mover of the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Burgess.
Yes, just by way of information for those who may be listening today and have not heard the presentation from Rob at prior meeting, much to what we had spoken about at Committee of the Whole, we don't do anything for community without community. This is a policy that has been put in place with over a lot of years, a lot of discussions and a lot of hard work. And the fire chiefs have been involved in not necessarily the development of this policy, but I sit on the Fire Services Advisory Committee, and they have had opportunity to read this policy and take it back to their teams before it was brought from Fire Services to Council at our first meeting. So I just wanted to, just by way of information for those who may be listening, this isn't something that we're doing, we're just handing off to them. It is something that we have implemented with the input of the Fire Services community. And you know, much appreciation to Rob Frost for all of his dedication to this over the last many, many years, and to our fire services personnel as well for, you know, meeting together and coming together to kind of unify things a little bit in our county, because they do great work and we want to be able to support them all fairly and equally and work alongside them. So just wanted to put that in on the record for way of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Excellent recap. Have we dealt with the vote on that? All those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. Unanimously passed. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, financial services. 7A is with respect to bylaw 93, private road maintenance and improvement charge. The recommendation is the Municipal Council give second reading to amendments to the private road maintenance and improvement charge bylaw, bylaw 93, as attached to the July 16th, 2024 special council agenda. By way of explanation to the public, there are certain roads, such as lake roads within the municipality of Kings, that are not owned by the municipality, but are owned by road associations, and those associations form societies so that they can go to the persons along the road and say, let's all contribute to the maintenance of this road, and we would like to go and ask the municipality to collect the funds on our behalf and remit them to the association, so the association can then use them for the betterment of the association and the improvement of the road. So we do that, and it seems to work very well within the municipality of the County of Kings. So I'm looking for a mover of the motion. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Killam. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously approved. Thank you. Moving to item 8, planning and development. Application for rezoning in Coldbrook, file 2403. We're going to have a presentation on this particular item from Ms. Alice Jacob, one of our planners. Ms. Jacob, are you presenting from there or from the podium? From there? Okay. There, your light is on when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This application was presented at the public hearing on the 2nd of July, and additional information was requested by the council. So I'll first provide a short recap of the application and then move on to providing the additional information. So it is an application to discharge an existing development agreement and to rezone a portion of the property located at 2809 Lovett Road, Coldbrook. The property is located within the growth center of Coldbrook, and the property is split zoned. The front half of the property is within the residential 1 and 2 unit R2 zone, and the remainder portion, which is towards the Cornwallis River, is within the environmental constraint O1 zone. The O1 zone restricts development and land uses. So this application is to rezone the section within the residential 1 and 2 unit zone, this portion, to the residential mixed density R3 zone. And this is to permit additional residential units on the proposed portion. So the total area of the property is 2 acres. And the yellow portion is the approximate R2 portion, which is around 0.97 acres, approximately almost close to 1 acre. The green portion is the proposed area for the additional units. The property owner has owned the property for over 15 years. There is an existing 3-unit dwelling. So there is an existing 3-unit dwelling here, which was part of the property at the time of purchase. 3-unit dwellings were not permitted as of right within the underlying zoning at the time, and it is still not permitted within the R2 zone. So a DA was entered into with the municipality in 2018 to legalize the dwelling. A rezoning option was considered at the time, but the policies applicable at the time did not permit rezoning properties to the R3 or the R4 zones within Coldbrook. So in order to add the proposed residential units, the DA will have to be discharged and the property will have to be rezoned to the R3 zone. The rezoning will also make the 3-unit dwelling a non-conforming structure within the zone. So moving on to the additional information, I will provide a comparison of the existing R2, the current R2 zone, and the proposed R3 zone, just to provide an idea as to what the rezoning would enable and what it might look like on the property. So this is a list of the permitted non-residential uses within the R2 and the R3 zones. As you can see here, both zones permit the same types of non-residential uses, which is existing agricultural uses, community facilities, indoor recreation uses, and places of worship. Moving on to the residential uses. So these are the permitted uses, residential uses within the current R2 zone, which is to the left, and the proposed R3 zone to the right. Both zones permit 1-unit dwellings, 2-unit dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and group dwellings. The additional uses permitted within the R3 are existing mini home parks, which is not possible because there are no existing mini home parks on the subject property. And the additional use is the residential facilities, which again might not be a possibility because the traditional residential facilities that we see here are large, and it might not be possible to develop such a large facility on this property. And then townhouses, this again might not be a possibility, which I will explain in the next slide. So the only use that we might probably enable through this rezoning is a multi-unit dwelling, on the last. This is a graphical representation of the property. So the lighter shade that we see here is the R2 portion, and the darker is the environmental constraint O1 zone. So we are only looking at rezoning the R2 portion, which is around 0.97 acres. The property has a frontage of 90 feet on Lovett Road, And this is the existing driveway, which is around 30 feet in width. And this is the representation of the existing 3-unit dwelling. So the reason a townhouse is not possible is because to develop townhouses, the property owner will have to subdivide the property and into different lots, and it will require these lots will require frontage on a public road. And the public roads are required to be at least 65.6 feet in width according to our subdivision bylaw. So as you can see here, if you create a road on the 65.6 feet wide road on the property, it might cover most of the area of the property, and it might not be possible to extend this road beyond this point because it is only 39 feet in width. It's not that townhouses are not possible at all. The property owner might be able to have 4 townhouses if he decides to subdivide it this way. That way he would have frontage on Lovett Road, and which would meet the minimum frontage requirements for townhouses. But this may not be the best way to utilize the property. Moving on to density. So as we all know, density is the number of residential units in a given area. So for example, in the R2 and the R3, the current zoning and the proposed zones, we can have a maximum of 10 units on an acre of land. So what this means is, this here is 1 acre of area, and the minimum lot area requirement for 1 unit dwelling in the R2 and the R3 zone is 4,000 square feet. So they can in this 1 acre, we can probably have 10 4,000 square feet lots, which means we can have 10 1 unit dwellings on this 1 acre area. So similarly, for 2 unit dwellings, the current zone R2 and the proposed zone R3, you can have 20 units on an acre. And semi-detached dwellings the same, 20 units per acre in both zones. And with regards to group dwellings, you can have around 21 units per acre in both zones. This is because group dwellings can be developed through a combination of 1 or 2 unit dwellings. And with respect to multi-unit dwellings, again, this would be similar to the group dwellings. You can have a maximum of only 21 units per acre. So both these zones permit the same maximum density of 21 units per acre, which means if the rezoning is not approved, the applicant can still develop 21 units through a group dwelling. If the rezoning is approved, the 21 units can be developed through multi-unit dwellings. So these are the other requirements within the zones. I'm just going to focus on 2 cases here, which is group dwellings within the current R2 zone, which is this, the left column, and multi-unit dwelling within the proposed R3 zone. So in terms of area, for group dwellings, you would require 2,000 square feet per unit, which would come to a maximum of 21 units, as I explained earlier. The same with multi-units. You require 2,000 square feet per unit, and that would come to a total of 21 units. With regards to setback and frontage, the lot frontage requirement and the front setback requirement and the rear setback requirement are all the same for both cases. The only difference is a side setback requirement. For group dwellings, it is 4 feet, and for multi-unit dwellings, it's slightly higher, 10 feet. The height requirement, both group dwellings and the multi-unit dwellings can go up to a maximum height of 35 feet in both zones. And in the R2 zone for a group dwelling, and even in the R3 for group dwellings, you do not require a specific amenity space, specific area dedicated for amenity spaces or recreation uses. But for multi-unit dwellings, you require an area equal to 100 square feet per residential unit, or 10% of the lot area, whichever is greater. Again, there is no solid waste storage requirement for group dwellings. There is a separate solid waste storage requirement for multi-unit dwellings. With regards to parking, for group dwellings, you require 1 parking space per residential unit, and for multi-unit dwellings, if the dwelling has has 6 or greater more number of units, it would require 1.5 spaces per residential unit. So again, a graphical representation to help understand what both cases might look like. The property and the dwellings shown on these images were developed based on the actual measurements, not to scale though, so that we can actually see what can fit in on this, what might fit in on these on the property. So there are a number of ways how both these cases could be developed. This is just one of the options I have created to explain the cases. The first case here is group dwelling within the current zoning, R2 zoning. So this shows a total of 9 group dwellings here, and each dwelling has 2 units in it. And these units are approximately, I would say, 1,000 square feet, give or take. And this here is the existing 3-unit dwelling. So as I said earlier, the maximum number of units that you can have on this area is 21. So 21 minus 3 would be 18. So the remainder of the units is within the group dwellings, 18 units. You can fit in 18 units through a group dwelling. And going back to the requirements again, so here I've used a minimum setback requirement of 4 feet, and the parking I've not shown here, but it will require 1 parking space per unit. There is no requirement for amenity space or no solid waste storage requirement. And the next case is the multi-unit dwelling within the proposed R3 zone. So in an R3 zone, multi-unit dwellings can only have a maximum of 12 units per dwelling, which means that the remaining 18 units here cannot be developed within a single multi-unit dwelling. So in this case, I've shown only 1 multi-unit dwelling with 12 units. The reason is because I'm not sure if all 18 units can be developed on the property when considering all the other requirements of the zone, which is a higher setback requirement, higher parking requirement, and the requirement for an amenity space and the requirement for a solid waste storage space. I'm not saying that it is not possible to develop all 18 units. I'm just not sure how many would be possible in this case. And finally, in terms of the height, as I mentioned earlier, both zones, you can have a maximum height go up to a maximum height of 35 units in both cases. Even group dwellings and also a multi-unit dwelling can go for 35 feet. So we have 2 recommendations here, one for the discharge and the other for the rezoning. And that concludes my presentation. I pass it back to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Jacob. Any questions of clarification now? As you recall, all of us do, I'm sure, but for the purposes of the rest of the people present in the room, this came before us previously, and we felt that we needed more information in order to make our decision on the matter, and it was tabled until today in order to obtain that information. So, have you had sufficient additional information from Ms. Jacob, or have you not, or do you have additional questions? Councillor Burgess.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Jacobs, for bringing all of that information to us. It's a very fulsome picture of what could be possible on that property. I know that between R2 and R3, there's a lot of similarities, but I'm wondering if this development agreement was continued, then would that restrict the units as per R2? Because it's not a standard R2 if it's under a development agreement right now. I'm just wondering.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The current development agreement, it permits 2 uses, which is the underlying uses permitted within the underlying zoning. Sorry, the uses permitted within the underlying zoning, and also the to develop a 3-unit dwelling on the property. So these are the uses permitted within the DA. Okay. With that DA, it is possible to develop the uses permitted within the R2 zone currently, but if the DA also has a clause which says that if the property is being used for a 3-unit dwelling, the area towards the back can only be used as a green space, which might restrict development on that space. So it might be kind of tricky that way. We might have to amend it or, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Ms. Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add a little bit of information. Had we amended this development agreement, we could have limited the number of units. However, we typically, with our development agreements, we do maintain the underlying zoning permissions. So while we may have been able to restrict the total number of units available in a multi-unit dwelling, it would still maintain those permissions for the units through grouped dwellings or other means. And it would also be somewhat inconsistent with our policies where we are actively trying to increase residential densities within our growth centers, in part for efficient service delivery, but also in response to our housing crisis.
Thank you, Ms. Mosier. Any further discussion by way of questions or clarification? Seeing none, then the proposed motion is that Municipal Council bring back the motion that was tabled on July 2nd, 2024, related to an application for rezoning in Coldbrook, so that we can now consider the main motion. Do I have a mover of this motion? Moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That motion is unanimously approved. Thank you. We now have the main motion back on the table for consideration. And that motion is that Municipal Council give second reading to the application to rezone a portion of the property located at 2809 Lovett Road, PID 55159925, Coldbrook, from residential 1 and 2, that is to say R2 zone, to the residential mixed density, that is to say R3 zone, as described in Appendix E of the report dated May 14th, 2024. Do I have a mover of the well, it's already been moved and seconded, so it was simply tabled and we brought it back from the table. So any debate, any further debate on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That is unanimously approved. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Jacob, for your fulsome presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there another motion following that? The discharge of the DA? Has that been done? Well, could you put it up? Or we haven't called the question on this, is that what you're saying? Or it hasn't been moved? All right, it just appeared and I didn't notice it come up. Ah, there it is. My apologies. That Municipal Council approved the discharge of the development agreement registered on July 26, 2018 between Robert E. Alders of Coldbrook, Nova Scotia and the municipality of the County of Kings from the lands located at 2809 Lovett Road, PID 55159925, Coldbrook, as described in Appendix D of the report dated May 14th, 2024. My apologies for the confusion. Do I have a mover of the motion? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's passed unanimously, thank you, and that takes us to number 9 on our agenda, recommendations from Committee of the Whole of July 16th, 2024. The first being a recommendation that Municipal Council proclaim August 1st, 2024 as Emancipation Day. August 15th, 2024 as National Acadian Day, September 30th, 2024 as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, October 1st, 2024 as Treaty Day, and October 2024 as Mi'kmaq History Month in the municipality of the County of Kings. You've already heard about this at the previous Committee of the Whole. Do I have a mover of the motion? Moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Granger. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's approved unanimously. Thank you. Item B is a recommendation from Committee of the Whole that this Council provide 7 days' notice per Section 48 Sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act to adopt policy admin 01023, Council Conference Attendance and Professional Development, as detailed in the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. Do I have a mover of the motion? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Discussion on the motion, please. No discussion? All those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. The motion is passed by one vote. Thank you. Moving on to item C, Bylaw 11, Police Advisory Board. Committee of the Whole has recommended that Municipal Council give first reading to repeal Bylaw 82, being the Police Services Advisory Committee bylaw of the Municipality of the County of Kings, as attached to the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. And as you know, this will be followed up by a subsequent motion that will reinstate essentially the same committee in the form of a board. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Killam. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously approved. Thank you. Moving to item D, Policy Admin 01024, Asset Naming. I'm sorry. Is that C? Okay. It's been recommended by Committee of the Whole that Municipal Council give first reading to adopt Bylaw 111, being the Police Advisory Board bylaw of the Municipality of the County of Kings, as attached to the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. I have a mover of the motion, moved by Councillor Burgess, seconded by Councillor Granger. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. As you know, this is different from having your own police force where the chief of police is your employee. We contract with the RCMP, which is a different operation. The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Now we're moving on to item D, that Municipal Council provide 7 days' notice per Section 48 Sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act to adopt policy admin 01024, asset naming, as detailed in the July 16th, 2024 request for decision. Mover of the motion, Councillor Burgess. Seconder, Councillor Killam. Discussion on the motion? Councillor Burgess.
Yes, I've sat as the chair of Diversity Committee for a few years now, and this is something that has been spoken about a lot, and was one of the things mentioned a lot when we went through the strategy of belonging. So I'm very excited to see it before us today, and just want to thank our staff for their due diligence and their dedication to this, and their commitment to make sure that they were working alongside as many professionals outside of our organization, to ensure that when we were doing this, that we do get it right, and that we do remain committed to our strong communities, strategic plan commitment. So I just want to thank our staff for this, and for all of the community that has spoken about the importance of this, and seeing this come forward before us. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The first step in walking the walk. Any further comment or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item E. It's been recommended by Committee of the Whole that this Council give first reading to the proposed deed transfer tax bylaw as attached to the July 16th, 2024 Committee of the Whole agenda. Do I have a mover of the motion? Moved by Councillor Killam, seconder. Seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Armstrong.
I would like to see this tabled until we have at least a larger complement, perhaps not 100% attendance, and I think we asked for some other figures. I know it's only first reading, but I think probably we should get this out of the way before we do first, rather than try to do it between first and second. So I'd like to table.
All right, there's a motion to table. Do I have a seconder? Seconded. No discussion on the motion to table. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion will contain the reasons so that the follow-up can be done, and that's passed unanimously. Thank you. The next item is item F of paragraph 9, the award of contract 2413 lift station upgrades. It's been recommended by Committee of the Whole that this Council award contract number 24-13 lift station upgrades to Mid-Valley Construction Limited for $1,436,266.90, including non-recoverable HST. Do I have a mover of the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Burgess. Discussion on the motion? Debate? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. For the information of the public, of course, all these contracts are submitted out for tender and scored when the proposals come in. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item G. It's been recommended by Committee of the Whole that this Municipal Council give first reading to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program bylaw, better known as PACE, Bylaw 112, as attached to the July 16th, 2024 Committee of the Whole agenda. Do I have a mover of the motion? Question prior to the motion being taken. Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you. I'm just curious to know that if perhaps Mr. Barr could just clarify that this is strictly putting the policy in place. All the sticky bits come later, that, you know, like the
policy.
Yeah.
So this is starting the process of the bylaw. The policy and all the details of it would come later, but this is,
Yeah.
there's a 14-day
We can't do
notice.
anything without this?
No.
Okay. Okay, then I'm okay with that. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. And I have a mover. The motion, please. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Granger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please vote, or otherwise, please vote now. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. Taking us to item 10. Is there any other business to come before the meeting of council? No other business. Comments from the public. I know you had the opportunity to comment in the previous meeting regarding the same items, so I understand. And we have, with appreciation, received those. No further comments from the public. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, your mic's not on. Just a second.
I'm used to that.
I'm asleep at the switch here.
So I guess I have 4 more minutes to say good morning, so good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Just for the record, would you state your name and place
I will.
of residence? Thank you.
My name is Pat Norton, and I live in the municipality of Kings. And I have 2 comments. So firstly, I would like to echo the remarks that were made earlier about the wisdom of conducting a paper ballot vote come this fall, because there are numerous incidences on record of failures of electronic voting systems and hacks of information. My professional association has been hacked, and the disclosure of information, and it just seems a completely unreasonable risk that we would expose ourselves to. So I would like to echo strongly her advice that we do what has long been done, and that would be to conduct a paper ballot. And secondly, I'm interested in, I may have misheard this, but in the proposed rezoning on Lovett Road and for the housing, it didn't indicate that I heard, but I may have missed it, how many residents would be anticipated there. But did I hear correctly that there's to be no parking?
No, you didn't hear correctly, no.
Okay, so there will be parking?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We appreciate hearing from you. Anyone else from the public wish to comment before we look for a motion to adjourn into an in-camera session? No? Thank you for coming and sitting through all this. We appreciate it. We are going to adjourn for lunch, and then we'll come back and reconvene in a closed session of council to discuss items under Section 2(2)E of the Municipal Government Act. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Burgess. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. Thank you. The council unanimously wishes to adjourn. No dissenters.